Hey guys, here we go to a video. We're going to be talking about some of the things that each fighter is actually going to be looking to exploit in the fight. And without further ado, let's kind of just get into it. The first thing that I think Mikey Garcia, and we're going to be going over his training footage, the first thing he's going to be looking to exploit is that Errol Spence always steps with his jab. As you notice here, stepping with his jab, right, as Brooke is trying to come forward, again stepping with his jab. And if you notice on this one, he takes a step to the inside here, to the inside of his opponent, which I don't always agree with. I don't think that's where you want to be. I don't think you necessarily want to be landing your jab against an orthodox opponent. If you're a southpaw, I think that you want to be, getting the hooks or staying on the outside and softening them up and making them open up to you. That's just my personal philosophy, but you can set up a lot of things by tricking your opponent into thinking which foot you're taking lead foot dominance with. But again, or rather whether you are or not taking lead foot dominance. But as you see, again, stepping with his jab, he's always on the outside, stepping with his jab. But look at how cautious he is, even in the first round, right? When he's baiting, he's looking for counters, he's touching his opponent's glove, right? And that's not a real jab, right? And I think that that's going to be a problem for Mikey Garcia and his game plan. Because his game plan looks to be, touching his opponent's glove, right? So he's going to touch gloves, and he's going to take a step back and come in with the right hand. And that's what he's been working on the mitts. If you catch him doing his mitts, even his most recent mitt work, which I saw yesterday, I don't remember who put it out, but great work, whoever's putting all that out. But as you see, touching gloves, and notice he's not stepping with his jab, even though he always steps with his jab too. That looks to be like his control, like we talked about in our last video, where you just touch your opponent's lead hand, and he's expecting counters to come back from them. He's expecting Errol Spence to come back and attack him off of those controls, which shows that he's working on the things that we talked about in the first video, where I think that him leaning in, because he leans in when he touches gloves or when he controls the lead hand of his opponent, he leans in, and that's a bad habit of his. But it shows here that he's working on that technique, and he's looking to shore that up and turn it into craft, so that even as his opponent looks to take advantage of that flaw, he has answers for it to make it not a flaw anymore, to make it part of his traps. And the way that craft works is that if you think about everything like a math equation, Errol Spence says it, like a chess move, right? And you always want to be making the better move. If your opponent thinks that they're attacking you on something that is normally a flaw in a fighter, and you know how to counteract it, then you're walking them into a trap, basically. And with a lot of fighters, especially like Lomachenko, not a lot of people know how far their craft goes, because number one, they've never fought anyone like Lomachenko. So as soon as they think that they have a craft breaking attack for it, they'll fight off that attack, like we saw it with Usyk and Myris Bradis, where they just let Usyk come to him because he's not as good at coming forward, because he's usually the quote-unquote boxer, the one that goes backwards, the quote-unquote reactive fighter. And then in his more recent fight with Tony Bellew, or Bellew, I don't know. But they think that they have like this angle to attack them on, but these fighters have seen that before, and Mikey Garcia here is demonstrating that he's aware of this as well, and he's looking to set up counters for it. So he's waiting for Errol Spence to attack him, or to step with his jab off of those attacks. But a lot of his camp so far seems to be geared towards letting Errol Spence come to him, and then moving off the line and fighting at range. I haven't seen a lot of his pad work that hasn't been based off of this timing, where it's almost all exclusively taking a step back, coming in with a 1-2, or a 2-1 rather, or a 2-3, as we see here, right? Boom, 2-3, and then rolling the hook and then going on the outside. Notice how he controls his shoulder right there too. Now, Mikey Garcia doesn't always do that, and that's going to be a huge problem. Like, look at how he's working on the mitts right here. And this looks very ominous, right? Look at how he's chopping it up with his homeboys, like, yo, what's up? Yeah, what do we have for breakfast? That shit was good, huh? Yo. And the problem with this style of training, and you get really relaxed, is that you fight like that too. and people don't always understand. And this is one of the things that I talked about in my last video about Mikey Garcia, you know, and I don't like this term, you know, the grit, you know, the doghouse, you know, that kind of stuff. But I wanted to use that idea to exemplify that Mikey Garcia doesn't fight 3 minutes of every round. As you see here in this clip, when he's fighting Dejan Zlaticanin, and he was destroying him just a second ago. He landed like 10 punches, hard punches, and then he just stands in front of him and winds up eating a shot. And there are a lot of opportunities in the fight where Mikey Garcia kind of, I don't want to say he just looks at his work, but he doesn't fight for 3 minutes of every round. He doesn't always think that he's in danger. You know, he kind of got the air that Zlaticanin was kind of, you know, a fish out of water boxing with him. He knew that he couldn't keep up, and he got kind of relaxed. And this is what happens when you do that with Errol Spence. Boom. See that great shot? I just want to point that out right here. So he's going to, see, look at Brook right here. He gets under the hook, right, the left hook from Errol Spence, even though it's like, you know, whatever it is. And look at how he starts immediately pivoting and moving out to the side. Look at how Errol Spence follows him. He feels it. He knows where he's escaping to. He sees that he lost control, and he immediately starts pivoting out, and Errol Spence starts following him immediately to land this great left hook on the outside, or rather fighting on the inside. And this is exactly the same kind of thing as this, right? And I know we're looking at it's very obscure, but there are a lot of situations in Mikey's career where he fights like that, where he doesn't fight throughout the entire engagement. We saw it a lot in the Lipinets fight. As you see here, he thinks the engagement's over. He won that engagement. He blocked the shot, got under the hook, but boom, eats a huge left hook from Lipinets. Again, he's going to be fighting on the inside, and he thinks the engagement is over. He just won that one, boom, and Lipinets comes back with another hard right hand. This was a war of a fight for Mikey Garcia. Lipinets is a small dude. But look at how he thinks the engagement's over, right? Even after he just got hit with that shot, and he stays there and just eats body shots. You know, Mikey Garcia's inside game is almost, not only is it not almost not existent, but again, he thinks that the engagements are over. He's not fighting all 3 minutes of every round. He's not moving off the line. He's not active. There's just a lot that he doesn't do, and he winds up eating a lot of shots that he doesn't need to. Again, you know, he wins this one, right? He wins the initial engagement, stays on the line, and then winds up just eating a counter shot. Wins that, eats a counter shot after he moves off the line. Look at how brilliantly he moves off the line. Controls his opponent's head, moves off the line, comes up, and his opponent beats him to the line, and he eats another shot. You know, Mikey Garcia is just kind of relaxed. And then again, right, stays on the line with his opponent. He thinks the engagement's over and winds up eating more punches for no reason. Again, not the greatest on the inside either. And this is something that Errol Spence is just fantastic at, is constantly pressuring you, making you fight on the inside, right? Look at this great body shot that he lands, right? And Errol Spence just makes him pay for it, you know? Constantly pressuring. Oh, you think we're done? You think we're done? Still fighting. Pressuring, controlling him, holding him. And look at these beautiful inside shots, like that great right hook right there. And again, Kell Brook thinks they're done too. He's trying to hold, he's trying to pin him up. And he's just eating shots. Again, eating shots on the inside, eating shots. And this is something that I think is going to be very, very dangerous for Mikey Garcia, is that Errol Spence is constantly fighting, looking. He understands where all of his opportunities are. Even when he eats that shot right there, again. And this is exactly, this situation right here, this is exactly something I expect to happen a lot in the fight. So Mikey Garcia practices this a lot. He's a little bit better on the control side, but see how Brook gets his lead foot to the outside, so he's escaping being squared up with his opponent as he moves off the line as Errol Spence comes forward, right? Errol Spence is looking to close the distance, gets put out of position, and Brook is able to snake off, right? But he doesn't control Errol Spence. He doesn't use his lead hand. He doesn't put his weight on him. And Errol Spence is still able to be an athlete and kind of maneuver as fast as his body allows him because there's no pressure from Brook. Brook's not fainting. He's not threatening an attack, and he's not controlling Errol Spence. So Errol Spence is able to catch him with that great right hook right there. Boom. And to be honest, this might wind up being the punch that ends the fight. Now I know that Mikey does a lot of work preparing for that, moving on the outside, as we talked about in the training video. When he controls, see how he controls Pita's shoulder? That's after a right hook. That's assuming that he gets under the right hook, and then he controls him. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm giving the edge to Spence in that regard, where I think that it's just going to be a little easier for Spence. I think he's just more experienced in that regard, because he's been fighting and doing this to people like his whole career, whereas Mikey Garcia has, what, 8 fights against Southpaws, or 7 fights? But again, Errol Spence constantly fighting, constantly pressuring, constantly pushing forward. And look at how long of a clip this is for the aggressiveness of Spence. I don't want to just say like pressure or aggressiveness. You know, it's tactical, it's smart. Oh God, I just had to include these clips too. Look at on the inside here. Boom, boom. Look at these short shots. These are just such great shots. And that's another thing about Mikey Garcia, is I feel like so much of what he does is timing based, but it makes him easier to time as well. And again, coming on the inside. Oh, this is a great clip, because this is something that Mikey Garcia is really going to need to learn to do. And it's going to be even harder because Errol Spence is just, you know, twice Mikey's size. You know, no matter what anybody says, even if, you know, after all that snack crap, you know, he's just not nearly as big as Kell Brook. But look at how he comes to the inside, gets his arm around him, right? Kell Brook does, and he starts pressuring forward and shooting that shot. And look at how he controls the glove of Errol Spence. He pins it here as he walks him to the ropes and starts trying to tap him to open him up, right? Get him to open up a shot on the inside. But notice how he doesn't sustain any damage there through nearly that entire walk forward. He lands that shot, ties him up, and look at how when he does tie him up, he's going to take his back foot. Notice, because he's right-handed, so his right foot is back. Brook is going to move his foot forward, and look at how he closes all that distance. Let's go back. Sorry, was that even the clip? Yeah, but look how he walks him forward. And he doesn't stay in his orthodox position. He keeps walking forward and closing that distance so that Errol Spence cannot land that left hand, right? That's something that Mikey's going to have to do if he's fighting Errol Spence. He's going to have to shift forward when they get on the inside and tie him up. Because Errol Spence is not going to do it for him. Errol Spence is going to stay planted. He's going to be throwing those body shots. He's going to be looking to create space. And Mikey Garcia is going to have to walk forward, pressure him back, hold him. You know, you can see Kell Brook's glove behind Errol Spence as he walks forward and closes that distance. Notice he doesn't stay in boxing position, right? And that's all I'm saying, is that after he lands those shots, he gets on the inside and he just pressures and walks him down, and it stops Errol Spence from being effective on the inside. And as we saw with the Lipinets clips, Mikey Garcia is not a good inside fighter. He eats all kinds of shots on the inside, fighting at close range for no reason, admiring his work, thinking that the engagements are done, not staying safe. Anyway, that's one thing that I think that Mikey Garcia is going to look to exploit, is Errol Spence stepping with his jab, even though I still give the edge to Errol Spence. I think that Errol Spence is going to look to take advantage of Mikey's inability to fight on the inside and his lackadaisical approach at it. We'll see if it's any better when he fights Southpaws. I know it's a little unorthodox for me to talk about how a fighter competes against an orthodox fighter or a Southpaw fighter using orthodox footage. I don't usually like to do that, but it is something that is consistent in Mikey Garcia's fights. But you know, fighting someone like, you know, who's not even a big fighter, I think they were fighting at 140. Lipinets was a nightmare the second half of the fight for Mikey Garcia. That was not a good fight for him. Maybe being in better shape, maybe the rest of the snack stuff will help, but I don't know. I'm giving a lot of edges to Errol Spence. I liked when in the commentary, if you guys saw the face-to-face, which I recommend watching, by the way. To be honest, I think Mikey's finally starting to get a little shook when it comes to thinking about fighting Errol Spence. He sees that Errol Spence, like the way that I see it, Errol Spence is really calm. He's very fact-based. Well, not fact-based, but he talks about everything like it's a fact. And when they were talking about the advantages that each fighter has, who's got more speed, and Errol Spence is like, me. Who's got more power? Me. Who got more boxing skills? Me. Who got better technique? Me. You know, like he's almost bored of these questions. Like everyone knows that that's all the case, you know. And it's interesting that, you know, I think Mikey Garcia is kind of picked up on the challenge that he's approaching. I think he's starting to finally realize, even though I admire him for taking on such a huge risk. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I think I'm going to be doing some more videos. To be honest, I can't find any clips of Spence training, so I can't talk about his strategy. But I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure his strategy for this fight is whoop Mikey Garcia's ass.